Okay, let's tackle the first letter that we received. So let me read it out. Dear Building Better Leaders, I'm in a leadership role, but some days I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. I second guess myself constantly. Was that the right call? Did I come across as confident enough? Should I have spoken up more in that leadership meeting? So on and so forth. So everyone around me seems so sure of themselves, so fluent in leadership language. I often feel like I'm just trying to keep up saying what I think I'm supposed to say. My team seems to respect me and I've gotten positive feedback here and there, but inside I keep waiting for someone to realize I'm not as strong as a leader as they think. How do I quiet this imposter voice and show up with more confidence? So, any thoughts before I provide some of my pointers?
For me, I think imposter syndrome is there. And we have to recognize it that it's there. It's how we are aware of it and what we do about it that actually truly matters. And there's no such thing where when we are 70 years old, we do not have imposter syndrome. Or when we are even 10-year-olds. I see my son go through that and he has doubts as well, sometimes, and that comes in. So that's only human. Is the probably the only thing I would add, and then maybe I will add on after Kausern, you kind of share your thoughts.
Okay. Again, same thing. I would just like to acknowledge the letter writer that imposter syndrome is normal, right? I would like to be able to normalize that it is. And the very fact that even though one is being promoted several times, it will not go away. And like what you said, it is really how you manage it in this case, right? And I think also for those, because the letter writer said, that in looking around, everyone seems to be able to have it, but I don't have it. Just to assure you that the people around, even though they could be loud, may not necessarily have it as well. It could be overcompensating for something which they may not have. So before I get into some pointers, I'm just wondering, were there moments in your leadership journey where you did kind of doubt yourself, and how do you go about overcoming it, like you said?
Yeah, many times, to be honest. In fact, every time I change job, imposter syndrome will come in. And I've had it since when I first started working, where either you get maybe a negative comment, say, oh, the deck was not as good, then the imposter syndrome comes in, because you may have put your heart and soul and then you thought, wow, I think I produced quite a really, really good work, and then someone tells you it's not. You kind of then really go into this self-doubt situation. So many moments. I think one very, very defining one for me, which I kind of told this story quite a fair bit, was when I had to take over a team, and the team was very, very close to the previous boss. Okay. And that point in time, the boss was actually the one who appointed me to take over the team when she was departing. Now, but I have a very different style. I think you alluded to that to say I am quite task and results oriented, but I do focus in terms of the people. I think at that point in time when I was a bit younger, I was a lot more task oriented in that regard. And for me, I am a believer of, keep your close friends close, but I don't need 500 friends, that kind. So I think people who meet me now, they will feel like, hey, that's a bit quite different from where Eileen is. So yeah, so the one big defining moment, I think, at that point in time was when the manager who was reporting into me decided to resign. And I have been quite tough on the team because I was pushing for really strong quality work. And I felt that at that point in time, we felt like it was a little like a bit too nuanced, great relationship with the client, but we were not really pushing the boundaries in terms of the work that we were doing. So when the manager decided to resign, she said this to me. She said that I will never be able to follow you as a leader because you are someone who lead with your head and not your heart. And it was really painful to hear. And that day I went home and I cried because I was like, firstly, you kind of go through a bit of a, and I think when we have to realize that we go into a roller coaster journey when this happens, right? When imposter syndrome comes in, it was my first gig as a team lead, meaning an account lead. And that was a big blow, I felt, for me. So you went into denial first. Most often than not, we always go to denial and we become super defensive and we put the blame on someone else, right? So I went through that. I went home, I cried, and I go, "What do you mean not with my heart? Well, I work very long hours. I'm thinking a lot about all this, da 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 da, and I'm pushing like all." Then you need, and most often than not, I think people stop there. If they stop there with just only denial and defense, you build a block, you build a barricade where you cannot self-learn. And for me, I think that was a bit of a pivotal moment because I then went into a bit more of a reflection moment and asked myself to go, I know I do care about the people, but maybe I was not showing up in the right way. And
Oh,
if you
wow.
really think about when you're in the denial stage, I just repeated it just now, like, what do you mean I don't care? Da 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 da. I did all this, da da da. How many I's were there in that sentence? It was all about what, I care. I care what? What do you mean I don't care? I have been doing this, I've been doing that. And it's a very common stage because that's what we are all humans. We go in, it's our it's our mechanism for survival.
Yeah.
We protect ourselves first, so we become defensive. That is only natural. We have to recognize that we go into this state and we have to allow ourselves to also feel it. I think there's no perfection one. You cannot go, oh, we are not defensive. It's okay. It's be defensive because you need to feel the hurt. You need to feel the emotions.
Yeah.
But you need to get on to the next stage, I think. And that was where self-reflection came in. And I thought I really calmed down lah. By then, finish crying, everything. Take a few days, simmer about the whole thing, and really reflected and start thinking to go, yeah, maybe the team's not feeling it. Maybe because I wasn't communicating my intention. Maybe because I was showing up in a, like, oh, you got to do this. It's like really, really hard and not being empathetic to think about how they are struggling to kind of drive that, right? And for me, till today, I think I will take this lesson to grave lah. Because while it was very painful to hear it, in my view, right? But it was a big pivotal moment because it changed the way I led, to be honest, from then on until today. And maybe that's where it's gotten to a point where, yes, I am result oriented. I've always been result oriented, but it has now led me to rethink how I need to do it and bring people along that journey and tell them that yes, I am pushing you because I know you can do more, because I have faith that you can. And don't worry, I will not let you fall. I will be that pelampong one. I will, but I'm going to push you until you need the pelampong. Kind of a mantra, and I now communicate it more, to be honest. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was, I think, a big shift in the way I changed my leadership after that.
Let's just gonna to push a little bit more here. A lot of people when they are in the denial stage, they blame and so on and so forth. But not a lot of people would have that kind of self-reflection and to
Yep.
be able to rethink. How does one able to move into that stage, right? To be able to self-reflect
Mm.
and to say, okay, let's reframe this, let's rethink this again, and what are the new actions that I need to be able to take? What, yeah, any advice for somebody who is actually kind of stuck there?
Yeah. To be honest, if I ask myself at that point in time, I also do not know how lah. But now that maybe after years of kind of having gone through a few, situations,
Yeah.
um, I do think that it requires one innate skill set, which
Yes.
is the mindset to learn. Like if you have that mindset to learn, you will you will be more aware in some moments that you start to push yourself to go, is this a learning moment? Um, and I think for me, ever since I was young, I have been a very curious person. I love learning, which is why I stay in this industry because I mean, from the time where I had to do TV spots, cross-checking, to
What
where
is
today,
TV?
yeah, I mean, like what? Like when I first started the job, they gave me a hard copy piece of paper, asked me to spot the missing spots on TV. I was like, wow, it's damn boring, all this job. To today, we are talking
Yeah,
about agentic AI and thinking
yeah.
about how we need to work hand in hand in AI. I mean, I don't think I can ever imagine this world to be so different, right? So I think for me, ever since young, I do have that hunger to learn. Like I have the innate characteristics of really just wanting to learn and curious enough. So I do encourage people to build that in mindsets. We always talk about fixed and growth mindsets,
Yeah.
and and then we always say, yeah, I got growth mindset or I got growth mindset. But actually, it's a real question to ask yourself: do you really,
Yeah.
really have growth mindset, right? And it's okay to say no and then start to learn that. So I would maybe say that is probably where it pushes me to go, okay, you already feel it, you already cry, you already feel, you will go a few emotions from crying to
Yeah.
anger to whatever kind of emotions. And then after that to take time to reflect about it. Lah.
Can I just add on? Also knowing you, and also observing what you just said. I think beyond the hunger to learn, the other thing that helped you to switch is the very fact that you have empathy.
I have empathy.
Yeah, empathy. Yeah,
A lot of times
again,
at
I mean,
at the younger stage, people feel that I don't have lah. But
yeah, the very fact that that statement that this junior or this manager said to you was so hard, right? That you had an emotional reaction to it. And
yeah.
that shows that you care, that you have
Mm,
empathy, right? So because of the filters of having empathy and the head knowledge, or at least the objectivity of saying that, okay, can I learn something from this?
mm,
Together with that, then what happens is that then you say, okay, I allow myself to wallow in self-pity, whatever. Then okay, now what can I do? And the very fact that having those values anchors you, right? The intent is still the same, but the
mm,
method can change,
yeah.
right? So that's where you say, okay, maybe, like you said, I was a bit too hard, maybe I didn't communicate it very clearly, and so on. So I think that is something which probably the letter writer needs to also consider, in this case.
Yeah, and I also want to make it clear that it wasn't like I realized it already and then it's like 180-degree change,
Sure,
you know. I mean,
sure, of
it
course.
took years to get to where it needs to be today. And there are moments still where I might be very task oriented because that's the most comfort level, right?
Yep, yep.
So I also want people to understand that yes, while I came to the realization, it wasn't like phew, I could just automatically make that change, right? And I think coming back to the letter, in terms of imposter syndrome, like we all like for me when I first gave birth, I was struggling, juggling, right? And I had massive imposter syndrome as whether I am a mom, like a good mom and those kind of things. I think what we need to realize, and maybe a bit of a word of advice for the writer, is to go. It's okay to ask yourself why you are having these questions in your head, right? And find what could possibly be sometimes the root cause of things. Is it because you feel that you don't deserve the position? Because sometimes there are bigger areas that are emerging as behaviors or thoughts, but there might be more root cause to certain things. For example, I fundamentally, when I became a mom, felt that women cannot juggle both. Fundamentally. It was a
Wow.
fundamental belief. And why did I have it? Was because when I grew up, my mom was a career person and I saw what she had to sacrifice. So it became an inbuilt and I saw the challenges she went through as well, where like, comments that are being made to her. And then it became inbuilt to go, yeah, it's actually it's not possible. Then when I became a mom, you without realizing it, you are self-sabotaging yourself because you fundamentally had a belief and I had to get through it as well. And it wasn't easy. Like I still now I think much better, but when my kids were younger, there were a lot of these unnecessary comments that I received as well that I really had to keep processing in my own way to try and manage my own imposter syndrome as I was going through that.
Thanks for sharing. I guess like how we just started out with this letter. I think we're all humans. I think I'm not too sure whether some people that who knows Aileen actually have heard of this side of the story. And I really appreciate you for sharing that. So I think the other thing that the letter writer can consider is to reframe how imposter syndrome can be a strength for them as well, right? For this person. So I think one person which I do look up to or I do read a fair bit is the former PM of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, right? And she's very famous for leaning into her imposter syndrome.
Yep.
How does she make it into a strength? And in fact, she just released a book called A Different Kind of Power, right? Which is
Oh.
an amazing title, right? And she's a very empathetic, human-centric. So there's three things which she shared, which was very interesting about leaning into that strength. So the first one is that the very fact that she is not very clear or not very sure about certain things pushes her to want to know more things, right? To prepare better in this case, so that she will feel less imposter in this case. The second thing that she will do is also she will then learn to ask for help as well, to humble herself, to ask for help, to get more information, so that she is able to tackle whatever challenges that she was facing. And the third thing is she also then layer it with her own values. After getting all the data, she will layer it with her own values and her own intuition to make a decision. So she still have a voice in this case, but she also take into account all the data points and to be able to solve problems that way. So that's how she leaned into her turning imposter syndrome into a strength. And she's not ashamed about it. She talks about it very publicly.
Yep.
And so that's another thing that a letter writer can consider to turn it into a strength. Cool. Anything else you think we should be able to give some pointers? Anything else for the letter writer to consider before I kind of like wrap up some of these key points?
No, I mean, yeah, I think we covered quite a fair bit.
Okay, so let me try to quickly summarize it for the letter writer to some action points. The first thing is for the letter writer to consider is that it is normal for you to feel this way, to have that kind of imposter syndrome, and no matter it won't go away whether or not you are 7 or you are 70. Second thing to consider is to understand that that you need to have the kind of, you need to, of course, allow it to happen, like what the Aileen's story is. Then after that, to kind of like push through it, in this case, to reframe it, to rethink again, to have the hunger to learn, to have the empathy to say, okay, in my intent is the same, right? Nothing has changed. I love to be able to drive results, but at the same time, I also care enough for the people. Perhaps I need to revisit the method instead. So this is something which Eileen did, which also the letter writer can consider as well. And the third thing is that for the letter writer to have a deeper self-reflection, think about where is this coming from, this insecurity coming from? Is it something which is a belief system which this person have seen or experienced before when they were growing up? And to be able to deal with it in this case. And the last thing is to reframe imposter syndrome as a strength instead of a weakness.